on the weekend?
I have to check.
Okay.
It's that week, but I think she has multiple performances. So
I got you. All right. Well, I'll just go and stay with John Rich and swim in his pool, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know how it was.
Oh, that is so funny. Just stay with John Rich. That's great.
Yeah, not the. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe he's too.
I have to check. It's that week, but I think she has multiple performances. So
I got you. All right. Well, I'll just go and stay with John Rich and swim in his pool, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know how it was.
Oh, that is so great.
Just stay with John Rich. That's great. Yeah, not the. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe he's too. I have to check.
Oh, hang on, guys. I'm getting some feedback here. Hang on. Let me see what's going on here. You guys still with me?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and record this thing.
Yep, we're ready.
Okay, well, hey guys, I am super excited about this one. So we're going to have a lively discussion. Every time I have you guys on, it always turns into a lively discussion. It always goes down some rabbit hole. But this is kind of a cool topic. Cool in the sense that I think a lot of people are thinking about it, which is, are we entering end times? And I'm kind of leading that to get to your guys' book. But you think about the economic uncertainty, the emotional unrest that people are going through. I think I saw a study today that said like 70% of people are living in stress right now, like stressful environments. We just had a conversation with some folks over in Europe, and these folks over in Europe are dealing with, rolling blackouts, and are they going to have to shut off the heat and, lights, and then people tied to biblical times, and then wars and threats of wars. And then you guys, like these international best-selling guys like Sons of Valor and Sons of Valor 2 and Dark Intercept and Dark Angel, and I've got more books up there. I mean, you guys you guys pump out books like some people pump out babies. I mean, it's just like
Actually, we're a little faster. Our gestational period is shorter than 9 months.
Yeah, a little less.
It's so great. So, I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, you guys, Brian Andrews, Jeff Wilson, international best-selling authors, Sons of Valor series, Tier 1. You got the new Shepherd series. We're going to talk about that, the so-called winter that people are talking about, right? These dark times that we're going into. And what I find fascinating is, your Dark Angel, your Shepherd series, which, by the way, the Dark Intercept, and I know I'm probably promoting the wrong book right now, but that's okay. But Dark Intercept, exceptional. I mean, absolutely exceptional. This battle between good and evil. And then followed that by Dark Angel. And I started thinking, I think either you guys have a crystal ball and can see the future, right? Or you're just so good at ripping headlines that and making them so relevant and so real in the book. So it feels like you're reading a piece of history. I mean, it's exceptional. Like, I don't blow through books, and you guys have great books. So I want to jump into this. Before I get there, I got to put a shout out to our sponsors, Bone Frog Coffee. Exceptional coffee. You guys love it. I know we love it. I especially am a little biased, of course, for the reasons why I love it, but, honoring the phone with every sip of that coffee. Founded by Tim Cruikshank, former Navy SEAL. Yep, love that. Sons of Valor. We even have a Sons of Valor brand of the coffee, which, by the way, is a great seller for Bone Frog. So exceptional. So I want to put a shout out there. So Jeff and Brian, welcome back to our unconventional podcast. Anytime I have you guys on.
It's awesome to be here. I don't know if this is unprofessional, but can we give a shout out to Bone Frog too? We love Bone Frog Coffee and what they're doing. And I got to say, because it's not said often enough, the thing we love the most about Tim and Bone Frog is that it's an exceptional product, but he does great work with it. Portion of the proceeds of every sale go to support really important Naval Special Warfare community charities and the families of those left behind, the children that are growing up without a dad. So amazing human being, in addition to being literally the best coffee I've ever had. We wouldn't put Sons of Valor on a bag of coffee. It wasn't the best coffee.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. And you guys even, you guys mentioned those in your book. So again, unconventional, but yeah, thanks for saying it. So, okay, before we jump in, because I led with this whole thing, are we entering dark times? And I think that's I think that's on a lot of people's minds. So, but before we jump in, I want you guys to kind of explain to those who don't know, who are going to watch this and who are watching this, how does a Navy fast attack submariner and a Navy trauma vascular surgeon pair up and write amazing books? Like, how did you guys meet? How did this whole thing get started?
I mean, we have multiple versions of this story, and it sort of depends on who gets to go first, which guy looks worse in the telling. But I mean, I think the root of the story is that we met at a writers' conference. And I think this does tie in sort of with what you're talking about a little bit, Mike, which is, when you're facing adversity, what is one of the solutions? It is to come together, and it is to lean on each other, and it is to find partners to help you through difficult times. And I think when you're getting into the publishing business, when you're first starting, it's like any small business, you have to learn how the business works, and you don't understand the competition, and you don't really understand even what your product is when you get started. And so, Jeff and I were both writing independently, both Navy veterans, trying our hand at being professional storytellers. And it is quite a challenge. And we had published a couple of books separately, but we both gravitated towards ITW, which is the International Thriller Writers Organization, which is a group of thriller authors who come together once a year at this big conference. And it's very fraternal. It's very, it's a brotherhood of trying to lift each other up. And so, as two Navy guys, I think, we gravitated towards each other because we had sort of this same ethos. And the idea of pairing up in storytelling might seem a little odd because it's a very solitary environment, but we decided to give it a go. And man, we wouldn't be where we were if we weren't leaning on each other and working together.
I agree with that, but I got to say, credit where credit's due. It was Brian's vision. Like when he first, we were already friends. We met at ITW and just had a lot in common and became fast friends instantly. But when he had the idea to write the books together, I have to be honest. I'm the guy that was like, I don't know. I was the naysayer, like not because I didn't want to work with Brian, but just I didn't see how they could work. Like I didn't understand how you could logistically have two people write something. But as Brian said, we tried it, and the best part of it is what he's talking about, that coming together, team and mission before self. We talk about it in our books. We talk about it on interviews. It's the life we're living, like in our writing career and in all the platforms, all the things we do to support veterans with our platform. That's what we do, team and mission before self. So that's how we write books. We come together and we work together, and there's no ego involved. And I do all the work and he takes all the credit. It's
a perfect arrangement.
It's a perfect system. Exactly.
I love that. I mean, it's so funny. I mean, I get it. I mean, when we did the film, like with, Chris Nolan and I teamed up for the film, and we co-wrote that thing and directed and I was joking because I was be like, dang, I'm doing all the work. I'm gonna have to drag in the equipment. I got to be on the stage. I got to set up equipment. I got to tear down equipment. And Chris just gets to sit back and tell me what to do. And right. But when you get that collaboration, great things come out of it. And you guys are a total testament to that. I mean, all your books, seriously, every time I read one of your books, I feel like it's being ripped out of yesterday's headline or tomorrow's headline. Like, interesting. I wonder if this is going to happen. And then something similar might happen. Right. And then I'm like, what the heck? Like, are you guys tied in? Like, are you guys like kind of, you guys are kind of making the books come through. So the Shepherd series, which is your latest series, and I want to give you guys the opportunity to talk about that, about a little bit about that, the spiritual faith component piece of this. One of the first times I think the first time you wrote the spiritual component into a series, is that correct? With the whole Shepherd series?
Yeah, I mean, there's elements of that because it's part of the human condition and probably a little bit of everything we write. But yeah, this is the first one where it's very faith forward, and there's a spiritual warfare aspect, elements about how to handle a crisis in faith. It's definitely very forward in this series. Yeah.
Yes. And when you were you started off talking about this book, which is Dark Intercept, and I'm glad you did, because it is the first book in the series. And there is a little bit of a, trepidation, I think, anytime you decide to branch out a little bit from, what your perceived lane is, And so for us to say that we wanted to incorporate these elements into our military thrillers, I think there were some folks who said, I don't know if that'll work. How will that, will that isolate certain members of your audience, or how will people react? And what's exciting is that book won the Carroll Award for Best Christian Thriller. And now we've been nominated for a Christie. So it's very exciting to see that, hey, you know what? This does resonate with people. There is a space in the market for this type of fiction.
Well, and I think that raises a great point, Brian. I mean, I think at the end of the day, and I'm just going to go out here and just say it, but I think even those who claim to be atheists or don't understand like a higher power, or don't recognize a higher power, when bad things happen, suddenly it seems like there's either this hope or this desire that there is a higher power, right? Or maybe there's some evil force working against me as the reason why I can't succeed. I think there's a component of that in every human being. What I love about your Shepherd series, and this is what's very compelling to me, and for those who don't understand your writer and have not read your books, then I encourage them to read your books, because your books are like Jason Bourne on steroids. I mean, it really is. Like they're page turners. Like every single page, I'm like, I can't wait to get to the next page. And these books are not like Reader's Digest, I mean, they're kind of thick, right? I mean, they're 400 pages. So, but you can get through the book because it's so compelling. The Shepherd series, I don't want to say has a dark tone through it, but it definitely has a dark spirit. I don't want to frame it incorrectly. So if I say something, you guys say, Schindler, shut up. That's it. That's not the right term. This is the term you need to be using. But what I mean by it is you can tell that there's a battle between good and evil in it, right? And so it's very apparent. And so that's what some people are calling a winter. We're going into this winter stage. We're going into the end times. So when you guys were writing this book, were you guys like, I think we're going into the end times. We're gonna write stories around this, or what compelled it?
So I'll share my personal feelings about the end times question. I have a couple of thoughts on it. The first thing is, philosophically or religiously or spiritually, whatever, my personal belief system, we began entering the end times at the resurrection, right? Like that's the end times is the next thing. And so the idea that it's going to be this day on a calendar when all of a sudden all of the things that you read about in Revelations will begin, I think it's not biblically accurate. If you read Revelations, if you read other things that were said by Christ about end times, what John wrote about it, what Peter wrote about it, you find this theme of a progression of the human condition towards the inevitability of the end, right? But it's a spectrum that began the day that Jesus was raised and ends whenever it ends. So that's the first thing. I've never felt like, things are going to be honky-dory and then there's an end time. Every generation in history has claimed they're the generation of the end time, right? Because World War II and back to, the Industrial Revolution and the Dark Ages, and everyone has a legitimate claim. If you look at the Bible and you look at what is said in Revelations and you look at the human condition in the 12th century, they had a legitimate claim. And are they right? They are right. It's just that it's this long, slow progression. And then the other thing is that I always am careful, because there are so many places in Scripture where it tells us you will not know. You'll not know until it happens. Jesus said that. Paul wrote that extensively. John says it. It's in Revelations. And so anytime you get that group of people that say, we got to figure it out, we cracked the code, we read Revelations chapter 3, it's going to be October 9th of 2025. The one day it's not going to be is October 9th of 2025, because it says in the Bible, we're not going to know the day and time, right? So, so all with that ginormous disclaimer, which I apologize for, I think that the human condition is in a constant state of evolution towards end times. Where we are in that cycle in terms of trying to pick little symbolisms out of Revelation and apply them to our life, I don't know. But I think that that's the whole idea, right? We should be assuming that we're in the end times all the time so that we're living the best life that we can, so that we're doing the things that we should be doing,
Great point.
so that we're in relationship with people, we're lifting up our family, lifting up our friends, lifting up veterans like you guys do. All of those things are hugely important. And assuming that we could be in the end times is a good motivation to make sure you don't waste any days in that journey. So that's sort of my take on it.
Yeah, that's really good, Brian. But you're just going to let him get away with that?
I mean, like he said, he does all the work. I'll take all the credit. That was a great point you made, Jeff.
Yeah, I was waiting for him to say he read it right off the card I wrote for him.
I mean, I think the only thing I would add is that it feels very real because we are in a time of great change and there is great stress. I mean, and Jeff mentioned the Industrial Revolution. We're undergoing a similar technological revolution right now. And even, we were talking about it just yesterday. There's been a lot of announcements from Google and other. DALL-E is out there now, these AI driven, artistic platforms that you can speak a couple of keywords and it will generate a picture. And there was a gentleman who entered a piece of AI art into this local art competition and he won, and he tried to take credit for it. And you start to see that this generates fear because people say, well, what's going to happen to my job? It was one thing when we had a bulldozer out there and it was digging a ditch and the ditch digger said, well, I'm out of a job. But at least you could fall back on, well, I can still use my mind and I can be creative and I can outthink the bulldozer. I don't have to worry about the day when the bulldozer outthinks me. And I think we're starting to worry that maybe that day is rapidly coming upon us. And so it makes you question, what value do I have as a person inside this giant economy, and where is my place and how can I contribute? And there is no right answer for that, because as the times change and things evolve, that's a moving target. And so it's very stressful for people, and there is a reckoning's happening whether we want it to or not. I think capitalism is going to drive that reckoning. And so now more than ever before, it's very important to look inside ourselves and pull together. This is the time for community. This is the time for us to support each other, because especially as people are becoming afraid and feeling threatened, we need to work together and find ways to support each other and make sure that, I could maybe use this program and it would be cheaper than hiring a graphic artist, but do I really want to do that, type of thing.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah,
that's really, if I can just, I'm really impressed with that answer, because I think it's the thing that we all forget, myself included, is that the idea of end times, the idea of tribulation, the idea of, all of those issues, we tend to look at it and project it outward as something that's happening to us. And I think that Brian's answer is very deep. It's very insightful. You shouldn't be saying, what am I going to do about what's happening to me? You should say, what am I going to do with the opportunity I have today? If the end is tomorrow, have I squandered today? What can I be doing to bring goodness into the world? What can I be doing to make people lifted up and not afraid? What can I do to bring God's light to people, rather than looking at it in a fearful way of what's going to happen to me? I love how Brian framed that. What can I do with the day that I have to be a light in the world in some way? And isn't that why there's such a gap between the end of the book of Acts and whatever happens in Revelations? Isn't that God's asking us to use that opportunity to be the light every day and to reach people and to help bring good into the world? So that was awesome, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah,
You made my day
really
better.
good. I love these interviews because I never know where they're going to go. We have our script, we've got a run of show, and then we go on something like this, and something profound comes out of it, and it's truly all about relationship, right? At the end of the day, it's really about building that relationship, which is so key. Which is what I think many of us who served in the military oftentimes miss when we get out, is that community, that relationship. And Brian and Jeff, you both are talking about. It's time to recreate that. If you don't have it, be sure that you get into relationship. I think that's awesome. So I got to get your book. So Dark Fall, coming out November 2022. this year. So
Comes out on the 8th, I think, on voting day.
on voting day.
Yeah, it is.
November-
I noticed that. I just
Yeah.
noticed that this
Wow.
morning, Brian. Did you notice that today? It's like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, that's election day.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well, maybe that'll prompt more sales because people are
Yeah.
like, okay, now we got to know what happens next. you know?
Right.
Maybe.
So it's part of the Shepherd series. I've not read it because I haven't got it yet, but it's a continuation of Dark Intercept, Dark Angel. Is that correct?
Yeah, and first of all, apologies if you haven't received it yet, because we certainly meant to get an ARC out to you. So I apologize. We'll make
Oh,
sure.
good.
Well, we just
Oh, good.
got ours yesterday because
Yeah, I just received
there's been
mine.
a big printing delay. In fact, the
Yeah.
publisher was stressed because they just got their copies in this week.
Wow.
How do you
Look
like
at
that cover?
I love that cover.
Go Tyndale. But
Yeah.
yeah, so this is the third book. It's part of a series. We're contracted through at least book 6. We're actually in the throes of finishing up book 4 right now. And as you know from Tier 1, we tend to write our books in sort of a trilogy, not a trilogy in the classic sense where it's the end of the story, but we find that it's kind of cool to be able to tell a story, to arc out a bad guy, to arc out a geopolitical situation in Sons of Valor or Tier 1 over several books, because in the real world, there isn't one bad guy and they put up the Batman light and Batman swings in and the bad guy is dead at the end, right? That's not how it works in the real world. And so we tend to arc these things out a little longer. So Darkfall is the third book in the series, and it does complete that first story arc of what begins in Dark Intercept. You'll see the evolution of our main character, Jed, and he comes into his own by the end. We have Sarah Beth and all that happens to her. But I got to tell you, we love this book. Like, this was so fun to write. There's so much exciting action. There's so much depth of character and growth for these people and relationships. It was a blast writing this book, an absolute blast.
So
And,
give the premise of the book. Like, Brian, can you talk a little bit about, the whole Dark Intercept series, the whole Shepherd series, and where Darkfall, Darkfall kicks off with a Peruvian village being wiped out, right? And people wondering, what happens, right? Was that an act of God, or was that human, was that a human design, et cetera? But kind of give the golden thread of how Dark Intercept, because I will say to those who are listening, when I read Dark Intercept, I swear there was 2 books, the second book being Dark Intercept, okay, but the first book being The Stand. Okay, when I first read Stephen King's The Stand, I remember I was still in high school, and I read that, and I swear to God, I made sure every closet door was shut in my so, because I swear there was red eyes somewhere looking at me. There was demons hiding behind closet doors. And then I read Dark Intercept, and I had that same feeling, like, oh my gosh, I started looking at people deeper in the eyes. Like, I already made that contact, and now I was like looking at them like, all right. So kind of give the thread there, and then kind of fall into Darkfall and what that's about.
Well, to be compared to Stephen King in the same breath, I think that's the best compliment, Jeff, we've ever had, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, I like what Jeff said about this three book arc, this sort of trilogy approach, because we don't like having to feel forced to tell a story in one book, get to know somebody and then have to close that entire arc all in one story. It's just too fast, and these characters are too complex and they're too real. And I think the characters even don't really want us to like give away all their deep dark secrets, in the first book. They're a little apprehensive, I guess, just like we are. You kind of guard sort of the intimate stuff, and that's sort of how it is with Jed. I mean, when you meet Jed in the first book, he's a very broken man. I mean, he's being medically discharged from the Navy, so he's physically broken. You realize that he's got some emotional baggage from his estrangement with his friends, his best friend and his former girlfriend. And spiritually, he's broken too, right? He's lost, he's in a crisis of faith. He's lost his way. He doesn't really have a purpose. And so I think when we first meet him, he's just sort of trying to figure out, well, who am I going to be now? What am I supposed to do with myself? And so when he gets that first call from David Yarnell, like, I need your help, my daughter's missing, he has to make that choice, which is, I don't know how to find a missing kid. Do I do this, or do I just say no and I go back to being very insular and trying to figure out myself? But because that's not the type of person that Jed is. Jed's the type of person that takes on a mission and he goes. He does that. And that's where we kick off that story, and that relationship with that missing girl, Sarah Beth, is very, very important to the arc of the series. And I think I'll kick it down to Jeff to maybe talk about that thread, I would say, that we pull through the next two books.
Yeah, the thread and these threads are all intertwined. And so we have the story, all good stories are some sort of hero's journey, right?
Yeah.
In Jed, as Brian described, he's a different hero for us. He's not a John Dempsey who's at the peak of his game in covert ops. He's not a Navy SEAL commander like Chunk Redmond who's doing what he loves. He's a broken guy with nowhere to go. So it's a different kind of hero's journey, but we have to see this evolution through the eyes of this broken Navy SEAL and this girl who in the beginning of the series is 12 years old, a 13-year-old girl and a medically retiring Navy SEAL are on this journey together, and their paths are going to intertwine. And that's where we're able to bring in this idea of good and evil, because this girl has been taken. We don't want to give away too much for the first two books for those that haven't read it. But his initial journey is just to do the right thing and try to find this girl. He's a Navy SEAL who's a fish out of water. This, like Brian said, he's not a detective. This isn't what he does, but he answers the call because that's what a good Navy SEAL does, right? And you have the counterbalance of his brokenness and his cynicism, and he's run away from his faith. It's not that he doesn't believe in God. He just doesn't know what possible role that has in his life anymore. And you have the contrast of this little girl and Brian and I have daughters that were that age when we were writing this book, and that simple childlike faith of a little girl, even in crisis. Here's a guy that's just trying to do the right thing and he's cynical. She's the one actually in crisis, and she's been kidnapped and she's in this with these horrible, evil people and wants to be rescued, and she's helpless. And yet her faith is so much stronger. And so we're able to pull these threads together and they collide, and then they have to figure out how that's going to look for both of them. But the premise of the series, to see if this helps, the premise of the series is the reason we call it the Shepherds. The Shepherds is our organization. This is our covert ops team. Premise of the book is that there's a team that has existed for hundreds, if not thousands of years, but for sure hundreds of years. There has been a team of spiritual warriors, real warriors, whether they were knights or Navy SEALs or Green Berets, depending on the time period. They were real warriors who felt called to spiritual warfare to combat the evil that's in the world. And the premise is, World War II and Adolf Hitler and Saddam Hussein and Mao and all of these horrible things that have happened in our history was driven by the dark forces in our universe. And their goal was chaos so that people would doubt the existence of God. So if things are horrible, people go, well, there can't be a God because he wouldn't let the world be like this. And so these shepherds have the mission of combating that evil, and Jed finds himself in allegiance with them and eventually in cahoots with them, I guess. We'll leave it at that for the reader to discover through the books. But that was really, really fun to build this universe, this fictional universe based on our belief system of what good and evil looks like, what spiritual warfare looks like, and what role faith has in combat. Because as combat veterans, I can tell you, when you see real evil for real, it definitely changes the way you ask these questions and the answers you come up with.
That's compelling. So you say a fictional series, and I keep pushing back saying, I don't think you write fiction. I think, when you start reading these books, you're like, I'm not so sure that's fiction. So Dark Fall, third in the series. Okay. I don't want you to tell me what happens because I want to read it, but it starts with this village. This village gets blown up, right? Incinerated essentially. And then, what is there a compelling, why should a reader pick up? Now, obviously they should pick up Dark Intercept, Dark Angel, right? They got to pick those up first. and then they go into Darkfall. What are they going to learn in Darkfall that they didn't learn in the other two?
Well, Darkfall, we as dads, we like to say, no parent would ever pick a favorite child. You'd never do that, right? You're proud of all your kids. You love all your kids, and our books are like our kids. We love all our books.
Yeah.
But this particular book, it's like when your kid wins the state championship, you're pretty proud of that one kid, right? So this book for us sort of it's like the state championship kid. This book got our first publisher weekly star review, and I think it's some of our best work. It's like our Return of the Jedi. Like everybody loves Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, but Return of the Jedi, that movie was just a masterpiece. And I'm not saying it's a masterpiece, I'm just saying for us, this is like our Return of the Jedi. And we wanted that feel, in that Return of the Jedi book or film, it feels like the good guys think they have this thing won, and then they realize, oh no, like the dark side has just been one step ahead of us. Palpatine and Vader have been one step ahead, and everybody's sort of falling into traps. And so that feeling is sort of what we wanted to create with Darkfall, which is, Jed sort of got his feet underneath him, in Dark Angel, he's got his team, he's finding his place, he's trained, he's a shepherd now, and, he's feeling pretty good about everything. Sarah Beth is at St. George's Academy now. She's feeling safe. And we wanted to take those, sort of assumptions that the reader's going to have at the beginning of the book from the characters, how the characters are feeling. And we wanted to squish them. We wanted to squish them. And we wanted to put you through the stress of realizing, all is not well. The enemy has been very, very busy. And so that opening that you're talking about in the Peruvian village, that's sort of this wake-up call that the enemy's been busy, they have a new weapon, and it's something that's very disturbing and upsetting, and there's more to come. And so that's what this book is. It is the big battle between good and evil in the universe that we've created.
Yeah, I like the Star Wars metaphor because it is like that, isn't it? It's like this is sort of everything is like these battles are all leading up to this final conflict in Darkfall. And I really don't want to say much more than that, but
we give it to the reader.
Yeah, it's you'll get there. That's for sure. Yeah. There's a conflict.
These books, they've got to be made into a series, like a series that one can watch, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully that's underway. Because I've got your characters already picked out in my head. Like I've already got a Jeb. I got this guy Jack, and I don't want to give Jack's last name away, but I swear to God, he should be in your book. I don't know if he's the guy in the red shirt that gets killed or if he's Jeb. I guess that's a Star Trek metaphor, but but I love that you guys are willing to tackle good versus evil through this way that attracts the reader. You know what I'm saying? Where it's where people think other people are super strong, but then you expose their weaknesses, right? Whether it's a character flaw, whether it's an insecurity, whether it's that brokenness, Brian, that you talked about, right? But the battle isn't just external. That's what I think the power of your books are. Is the battles just aren't external. Even in your other, like your tier 1 and your Sons of Valor series, it wasn't just external. The battles, you address the internal battles too, which is, I think, why it's so compelling to readers and why you guys are international best-selling authors, because people can relate to your character, even if they've never shot a weapon.
Yeah, that's where the real struggle is. That's where the real war is fought, right? When team guys talk about, look, once we're in the suck, it's not about geopolitics. It's not about, patriotism. It's about my teammate, the guy next to me. That's why it becomes so personal. That's why it becomes an internal battle. And the people that win are the people that are able to win that internal battle first, so that they can harness that energy and that confidence and that camaraderie and that team and mission before self and all of those elements we talk about. If you can't win that internal battle, or on the flip side of it, if you, like we do, work very closely with people supporting PTS charities and stuff like that, if you lose the battle in the end because of the demons you brought home with you, that's not a victory. And so we feel very strongly about that internal battle that you're talking about, not just in fiction, but in real life. That's where the battle is really won and lost on the battlefield. And now we're seeing, as importantly, maybe more importantly, after the battlefield. So we do write a lot of that into these characters. How do these situations impact relationships and teamwork and personal issues? Because that's the real world. And we want to show a reflection of the world that we've been able to see firsthand, the good and the bad, right? We don't want to glamorize it. We want to show the human toll. We want to show the amazing human beings that we had the honor to serve next to. But we also want to show the price that has.
Yeah.
And I think when Jeff and I talk about this a lot offline, why do we write stories? Why do we gravitate towards this profession? And I think it's because, when we were younger and even now, we love books. We love hearing a good story. And why do people gravitate to this type of genre? It's because you're looking for heroics. You're looking for a role model. You're looking to be inspired by a character who's facing adversity that seems like it might be impossible to overcome. And so, what's exciting for us is because we have these different series, we're able to sort of explore different types of adversity in these different worlds. And it's not a joke to say that, we think a lot about how do these people respond to adversity and challenge, and their heroic actions are rooted in certain principles. And, we'd like to be like these guys. We want to be like John Dempsey and Jed in our daily lives. When you have a choice, which way are you going to go? Are you going to be courageous, or are you going to turn your back? Are you going to do the right thing, or are you going to be weak and do the wrong thing? And I think, that's why we tell these stories, because we want to live like these people. And we want to also help inspire other people who read these books to behave and think, heroically about their own life.
I love that. That is so good. So, how do people get this book on Election Day, November 8th, 2022, so that they can understand what happens next year? Because if you read this book, Dark Fall, you'll understand what's going to happen next year, I guess. So,
you know what? The easiest way, if you're worried about the busyness of Election Day, is just pre-order it, right? So our books are carried everywhere. Whatever your favorite bookseller is, you can get it there. We always have links on our website. Andrews-wilson.com to get you to your favorite bookseller, but pretty much you get these books wherever you buy your books. They're not hard to find. No excuses.
Yeah, I love that. Well, it used to be that you could only get a book someplace, right? One place, and now you can essentially get it everywhere, which I love that. So,
and we also have it as an audiobook too. So if you're a book listener, you can get it on audible.com.
Yeah.
And then it's in the ebook format too. So.
And a great narrator, McLeod Andrews, has been fantastic for us. So.
Is that right? Yeah, I find that the books that have great narration, I sleep after like half a page because their voices are so great, and I can't, but if I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my gosh, and then I'm picking out little lines that you guys put in there, and I'm like, oh, that's a great quote. I'm going to put that into my own vernacular. I'm super smart. So, no, such great books. I just want to congratulate you both. Brian and Jeff, you guys are exceptional writers. I mean, phenomenal storytellers. The characters, I feel, are very much alive. I get a personal connection with them. Like I when I read the book, I'm like, oh my gosh. And, sometimes I can feel their emotion, or I can relate to their emotion, which is pretty interesting. So kudos to you guys on just being exceptional writers. I mean, so I'm going to encourage everybody to get all your books. Okay. Get them all. because they're all very, very good. And certainly the Shepherd series is really good when you talk about a faith, battle between good and evil and faith, and just operating your life in a faith walk, which I think is, and we can say, just have faith. But what you guys describe as faith isn't always easy. And I totally appreciate that in the book. So if I want you guys to leave our listeners with this, if there was one thing you think our audience could do, the listener could do, that would help keep America strong, okay, what would that be? Brian, I'll start with you. Or no, Jeff, I'll start with you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so mine is easy because it's something that you and I have talked about before, Mike, and maybe even on the show. But I think that the best thing you can do for America is live your daily life. It's not, I mean, you got to vote, you got to do all of these things. You have to be involved in our nation. But the number one thing you can do to make America strong is to live your own personal life in a way that honors the sacrifices of those who didn't come home from the battlefield. When you think of those men, it's great to donate to charities. It's great to do all those things. But the best thing you can do is to live a life that is deserving of that sacrifice.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that. Honor the fallen, live a life worthy of their sacrifice. Yeah, it's so important. Brian, what about you?
I think mine maybe even just an extension of that, which is, we're living in this time now where with social media and regular media, commentary type media, for ratings purposes, inflammatory behavior and villainizing our neighbor gets eyeballs and gets people's attention. But we are Americans, and you have a lot more in common with your neighbor who might have a different political affiliation than you do with the folks that are waging the war in Ukraine right now. So let's remember that your neighbor is an American, and we all need to pull together. So let's not villainize each other. Okay, let's pull together as a country and use dialogue to sort out our political differences, as opposed to promoting violence or conspiracy theories or the like.
Yeah, I love that. Seek to understand, essentially, is what you're saying. Like, seek to understand the opposing view. It's so good. Gentlemen, I love, we could probably sit and talk for hours. You guys, I love having you on the show. I love your books. Encourage everybody to visit your website. Give that website again so they know what it is.
It's andrews-wilson.com.
Yeah, andrews-wilson.com. Visit, you can get all their books from that website. Follow you guys. Exceptional. Excited for this next book, Dark Fall. I just really seriously got done, like probably about 3 weeks ago, reading Dark Angel. And gosh, my wife's like, you got another one? I'm like, I'm going to keep reading every single one of these things. And I'm done with them in like 4 days. So they're so good. So looking forward to this next book. But gentlemen, thank you. Excited. Everybody, be sure that you check out their new book. Pre-order it now. Get it now. It comes out November 8th, 2022. Visit their website at andrews-wilson.com. Gentlemen, thank you. Thanks for being on the show again.
Thanks, Mike. It's always great to talk to you, man.
You bet. Be well. It's great stuff. I love having you guys on.
It's always so fun. Yeah, the time flies by. It's so fun.
I know. Usually I keep these things to like 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes. And then you guys get on and, before you know it, I'm at 48. So, but it's so great. So it really is. I appreciate you guys.
No, we appreciate you. Thank you.
No. Yeah, you betcha.
We'll make sure we get you a book.
I'm fine ordering it. Seriously.
No, don't be ridiculous.
No.
They were supposed to have sent you one. I'm a little disappointed that they didn't follow through, but
I think it's because that was no BS. They just got them in, dude, last week.
No, they just got those in, but we got the ARCs. I have ARCs. Okay. They should have sent them an advanced copy.
Okay.
Well, that's all right. That's all right.
You'd rather have a hardcover anyway.
We'll send you a signed hardcover right away.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. I love that. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, thank you. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the weekend. I don't even know what day it is. Tuesday. Yeah, enjoy the weekend when it comes up. But have a great week.
Tell Tim we said hello and good luck on all your upcoming interviews and podcasts and stuff.
Yeah, you got it.
And let us know any intros we can make for you. I just did just before this. I did Chad Prather's show on Blaze TV.
Oh, wow.
He's a real patriot. He might be someone worth connecting with. If you're interested, I can try to put that up. And Brian's going to be on his show next week or the week after. So,
And we got to find a way to get this book in Alan Richson's hands.
yes.
In whose hands?
Alan Richson. He's the star of the Jack Reacher show.
Okay.
And he's a big Hollywood star who talks openly on social media about his faith.
Yeah.
He does a segment once a week. I can't remember what he calls it. That's just him sharing scripture with his children. Sometimes they're like driving to school and he's like talking to them about the Acts Church or about the Apostle Peter or what. He's a really impressive dude. He has a powerful faith. And we, as you know, we sold this to Sony already. It's already been optioned to Sony. And if it gets green lit, we'd love for him to, consider being part of it because he would be perfect.
Did you talk to Tim about getting a hold of him? Because I thought
Tim said he knew somebody who was his roommate.
Yeah, Jordan. Jordan was his roommate.
Yeah.
You guys got to hit up Tim and tell Tim. Now listen,
Jordan said he would send him an email, but I don't know how that went or if
we never heard anything back. We just want to get books in his hands and see what he thinks.
If you think there's a way to get a book in his hand, let us know.
Okay. I'll talk to Tim about that today.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Gentlemen.
All right.
Until next time.
And we don't have to wait till next